Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I can see some refreshed faces comparing to the morning, so I hope you had your coffees and your drinks, right, like Zach said. So my name is Tomas, and today we'll be diving a little deeper into the human-related risks and also some tactics and methods on how we can mitigate that risk. Because I believe, and I like to share that with my clients, that the least reliable component of any system is human behavior. And we can say that this is both a huge risk for any organization, team, or development force, but it's also the biggest opportunity for the organization. So this is where I want to focus today and go with you with this kind of journey for a bit. When it comes to my own background, I actually spent more than a decade working with technology teams, with developers, with business analysts, with optimization experts, distributed globally. So my background relies a lot on management, on working both with technology and with people behind the technology. Some of the facts that today I am finding myself in the position of consultant. I'm focusing on performance and leadership, and in the past 3 or 4 years, I worked with more than 1,000 of team members, team leaders, high performers in technology companies. So the things that I will be sharing today are not only from my own experience, but there are things that are working with my clients, and it will be really distilled to the main insight that will help you to move forward. And when it comes to move forward, I have these three goals or aims for this session. So first of all, of course, to introduce you maybe a bit new way to improve, to adapt, and to thrive, and how I actually consult my clients, helping them move faster and adapt quicker, even though we can have very uncertain situations and very uncertain domains and contexts. The second thing is team temperature. So I will share with you like a very concrete tool how you can actually understand the disbalance and disequilibrium in your team. So when it comes to the team temperature, you will notice that I'm not speaking about team satisfaction and aiming to make everyone happy. I know that it might seem like a great goal to have a happy team, but well, your role as a leader or as a person who is participating in team is not to make everyone happy because you are not an ice cream. So you will see that I will take a risk and be a little bit more uncomfortable or spicy in these things and say how we can actually provocative and put your team in this kind of disbalanced positions consciously in order for them to be more productive. And finally, I will finish with goals and vision setting reimagined and redesigned. We'll actually look into one tool that is based on fear. So instead of only focusing on ambition or vision, on something that is great and awesome and cool, we will focus on the dark side of the moon. We will focus on the risks. We will focus on the fear. So we will notice that there are more spectrum of human emotions rather than just being, happy and fulfilled and super joyful and excited. So when it comes to clarity, certainty, and collapsing time, I like to share this kind of method, this kind of flow when it comes to understanding your own current position and the most efficient path forward. So when it comes to the clarity, the first step, the first phase, the objective is to get crystal clear around your current position, so your point A sorry, and your point B. Why it is important? Because the biggest mistakes and the most expensive mistakes happens in the very first phase. So we are identifying the problem wrong. Imagine you are going to the doctor, you are doing all the research on your body, and your doctor says that, something wrong with your lungs. Okay, doctor, I trust you. We are trying to treat my lungs, and after 3 months, the doctor says that, sorry, Thomas, it's your heart actually failing, not your lungs. Sorry about that. We'll adapt, right? So the problem is with the first analytical problem diagnosis. This is where we want to focus from the very, very beginning. So this is why I'm thinking in terms of understanding not only the goal that you are trying to achieve, but also the point A where you're starting from. Next step is certainty. So how we can actually execute the plan, removing the hidden risks and actually locking in some wins in order to maintain the momentum. So the interesting thing about our performance is that in a lot of times we are focusing on breaking the personal records. We're focusing on being the most productive version of yourself. And the LinkedIn and other social medias are full of the motivational stuff that, strive to be better every day, improve 1% every day. But the thing is, with the constant improvement, that it's really hard to maintain. Imagine you are being a runner and you are trying to reach your personal best each and every training. The important thing is to balance actually two different things. While I was in Lithuanian's national team, athletics team, one of the main goals for our trainers was to avoid us being in the gray zone. So as a runner, you can be in the performance zone, so you can really push hard, you can, try to achieve your best, you can really try to challenge your body in order to become better. And also, we have different side. When you are trying to recover, when you're trying to prepare your body for like a long-term health, right? Let's say. But the gray zone, it's that the tricky phase where you are running not fast enough to be in the performance mode, but you're also running faster than only being in recovery zone. So this is gray zone what we actually want to avoid, and we want to focus not only on reaching our personal goals, but also not only on just recovery mode. So we need to balance those two things. And finally, to collapse time, which is compress the time to achieve goals faster than it was previously thought possible. This one is tricky one, but you will notice in a minute what does it actually mean. So first one, clarity. So we are actually just putting down what exactly I want to achieve. Either it is with the team, either it is with the individual. The thing is that we're mostly focusing on point B instead of understanding the point A. And this goes actually in all our domains, in health, in relationships, in team performance. And when we are in the position of striving for excellence and we really want to improve and we want to really to reach some kind of specific outcome, mostly we are trying to look how other people done it before. So maybe they are kind of tools, kind of structures, kind of hacks, how we can achieve it faster. And we rely on those persons or on those tactics without actually analyzing and realizing before what is their concrete point A. Because if someone comes to me and say, Thomas, I have a great business opportunity, I know how you can make 10 million euros. All right, that's cool, but I'm not sure what is the starting position of that person. Maybe the person started with 40 million, and then he knows there are few ideas how to make it 10, right? So I may not be so interested in that system, but maybe the person started with 1,000 or 1 million and made it 10 million. So that's what I'm interested about. In a lot of cases, you can see, especially in social media and especially in people sharing their case studies, that there are so many different ways to achieve similar goals. Because if only point B would matter, then we all will be millionaires with six-pack, or abs or beer six-pack, you can choose, but it will be very easy. But the point A is what actually makes the difference, right? So even this morning, I read one status in LinkedIn how one CEO of a huge company, or CTO actually, how they run their development teams in order to maximize the efficiency. So what they decided to do, they actually decided to rid off the daily stand-ups and replace them with only some automated questions each morning and in each afternoon. So they are starting with what you are focusing on today, what is your plan for today, what you are trying to achieve, and in the end of the day, what you actually did, right? So it's very simple, very straightforward. And the CTO is sharing that it works really, really great. They are saving a lot of time without, collaborating with each other, and that may be very effective in their case. But I would argue that it's very hard to identify any kind of human-related issues or problems if we are only automating everything and just, letting people answer some questions in Slack, automated messages, or somewhere else. So this is how we need to be very conscious about choosing the different tools and different methods when it comes to achieve the certain goals, because our goals might be very, very similar. We all want to build a great products. We want to do it with the people that we enjoy working together. But the way how we are doing is very different. So that's why even working with my clients, I always start from point B and also point A. What is your unique current disposition? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? What is your context? What kind of leverage points you have? What kind of low-hanging fruits there are? Maybe there are living dominoes that you can move in order to embrace it and empower the next movement. So it's really important. The second thing, when you have already your point A and point B, you're focusing on establishing certainty. So you want to eliminate risk and actually keep the flow and keep the momentum. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what needs to be true in order for me to achieve the point A, and how I can mitigate the risk and maybe guard myself or guard my team against blowing themselves up and burning out, for example. Because while we are working with the team, of course, we need to strike for that golden balance between team that is being engaged enough and really feels the ownership and they are really contributing and building and creating, but also we need to protect them from burning out and from being maybe too ambitious and too pushy, and too engaged, because it sometimes also happens, especially when you have in the team not only senior colleagues, but even super senior people are also in the risk of burning out, of course. And finally, collapsing time. So if there are any ways to move faster and adapt quicker, there are some questions that I would recommend you doing yourself and doing with your team. I know that people who will watch the video will be able to also see them and pause the video to actually write them down, or you will get the ability to get slides after the presentation also. But these are the questions that I really like asking my team or my client's team, which is including, what you would like to happen that is not happening right now, or what do you like to not happen that is actually happening right now, or what could be the real value for us, what could be the definition of done, let's say, in order for us to achieve one certain objective or another. I am stressing a lot on the point A and point B because we as humans, we designed as a goal striving and a whole goal seeking machines. So our brain needs to have a certain goal. But the tricky part is that in most cases, when we have a lot of information, we have a lot of context, we have a lot of changing different parts around us, it becomes very, very difficult. Because during my period as an executive, I was finding myself a lot in London Tech City, there are only three main topics that the majority of the London Tech City pubs and other places where people gather. So people speak about three main things: scale, scale, and scale. That's it. That's the three most important things in any conversation. And the interesting part is that when you are sitting in the pub and you are having pint or two, then you're starting to speak with those executives and those founders, and in the beginning of the conversation they are speaking about raising another round, increasing the number of employees, making sure that they are working efficiently, making sure that they are preparing for the next releases, right? But after a while, you're starting to ask them what is your real point B and what you're trying to create in your life, and suddenly you realize that the person is sharing that they bought a great bike, but the bike is still packed in the garage for like more than half a year because they just don't have time to ride it. Or they have friends that they haven't met in a couple of years and they really want to renew the relationship, but they just don't have time or don't have energy for that because they have a business to build. And that's fine if it is your point B, but we cannot only get the great shiny picture and think that it is exactly our point B. And the same goes with our team members. The biggest issues when it comes to goal setting or to aligning goals in the companies and in the teams is that we are actually not sure what is our employee point A and point B. We don't know. We think that it might be professional development, it might be the bigger salary, but what exactly it is, we need to understand it. So this is how it actually goes. With the clarity, we know some things that we know, right? The clarity is what you know. You know your point A, you know what you're striving for, right? Clarity, pretty simple. Certainty is the things that you know, but there are also some things you don't know, right? So you are coming to this conference and you're seeing the agenda and you see that, okay, this session looks really interesting because this is some kind of knowledge gap that I have, so I want to focus on that. maybe this session is also interesting, I want to improve my specific metrics evaluation skills or whatever. But then the interesting part about collapsing time is that there are things that you don't know. And this is where it becomes interesting. And this is what I want to share with you today. So there are those two tools. So the team temperature and fear-infused goal setting. Because I believe that there are, some things that you don't know, and I hope, and my aim for today is to share at least a couple of those. So the team temperature. When it comes to the team temperature, there are a lot of different ways to measure it, and there are a lot of different ways to actually evaluate it. When it comes to team temperature, and when you are, for example, looking in Google, or you're trying to put the team temperature, in the majority of the cases, we're speaking about satisfaction levels. So imagine that, someone asks you today, what is your temperature? What is your emotional state? And you might say that, well, I slept well. Yesterday was really interesting. The after party was great. So I'm pretty excited. I'm a bit maybe nervous or stressed, but I think it's everything fine. So I think it's a 9, right, or even a 10. This is how we tend to look at it. But the team temperature tool that I want to share with you is more focused on this equilibrium or this balance of the person that they are feeling. So we all have some states where we are totally relaxed. Also, physiologically, but also psychologically, emotionally as well. We are relaxed, everything goes fine. So, for example, you now, listening me speaking, you are probably really relaxed, right? If there is nothing burning in your in your work and you don't have some kind of requests coming to you, then you're probably, in the temperature scale from 1 to 10, you might be like a 2 or might be like a 3, but it's pretty relaxed, it's chilled, right? It's pretty, normal. Me myself, I'm on the bigger scale of the temperature because I'm presenting, right? I'm engaged, I have this adrenaline pumping, so my temperature a bit higher. But if suddenly, the fire will start in the cinema theater, I hope not, but then our all temperature, well, directly and indirectly, I would assume, will really increase, right? And we will be really moved to act and to perform in a specific way and to go somewhere, right? So this kind of motivation strikes in a lot of cases. But I am now want to focus more on this kind of long-term engagement and long-term motivation about the person when we are focusing on consciously distributing and disturbing the balance of a team. And I know that for some of you it might seem risky, and it is risky, but once you know it, you will be able to move your team engagement to one direction or another. I would want to ask you to raise the hands people who are actually, mobilizing people for a living. So you are in some kind of leadership position. You are a team leader, a project manager, like a senior developer. So what kind of, any kind of leadership position. Awesome, so the majority of the group, thank you. So this will be really, really interesting for you. So this is how it looks. It's actually based on adaptive leadership. It's also one of the philosophy and the toolkits of how to see organization and a team as a system, and which I really enjoy and really like. So we can have like a very different engagements and very different levels of disequilibrium in the team. So as I mentioned, when we have technical problems, so we know what we know that the things that we may not know, but it's pretty, usual. So we have this yellow zone of like a usual, normal, certain behavior, certain engagement, just a daily rolling average that we have on our performance on our team. So it's pretty chill, I would say. But then we can also have the red zone, which is like a too hot. So the disequilibrium and the disbalance in the emotional state is so high and is so hot that it's actually impossible or nearly impossible to perform in the optimal way. Now, the great example of a tragic events might show us how to look at this equilibrium. So I think that all of you remember the day when the war in Ukraine started. And those couple of first hours or even couple of first days were really stressful. The future is uncertain. We have no idea what will happen, right? Maybe even you have your relatives or your friends impacted by the war. So the temperature is super hot. It is really hard actually to do something, and you're finding yourself in this, panic mode. Should we move out of the country? Should I, what should I do, right? The corona is also a great example. When at least in Lithuania, we had this weekend that on Friday we already knew that something is moving and something is happening, something wrong. But during the weekend, our government said that from Monday we cannot meet in person. That's it, right? Very, very hard constraint. And then a lot of companies found themselves in this kind of panic position. Some of them have laptops, some of them have stationary machinery, some of them knows how to work remotely, and they all have these kind of all the systems in place. Some of them don't. So the temperature is super, super high, right? It's hard to be productive. But then we have the sweet spot. We have the green zone, which is actually a productive distress. A productive distress is the one that we can learn more, we can actually engage, and we can actually contribute more. When you're looking at your own behavior and also when you're looking at your team behavior, you may find that sometimes when, for example, some kind of important release is coming, the team somehow mobilizes. They somehow become more engaged. They started to contribute more because the level of distress and the level with this equilibrium really rises to that productive temperature. Now the key is actually to make sure that we know how to manage our team and how to move the people from one side to another. So for example, when the team is feeling too stressed and there's a lot of panic and we are in this kind of too hot red zone and we can burn ourselves up, we can lose the job, we can make all the kind of mistakes because the stress level is just too high. Now we have, of course, very chill times where we are just solving the technical problems. We are just following instructions, we're doing business as usual, and of course it's also important to have this kind of average days. But then we have times, especially trying to achieve a certain outcomes, trying to really adapt to a changing situations, trying to really find our way to thrive in uncertainty, because this is actually what is the future all about. Now there are only three things that any leader does that decreases the temperature. And this is ensuring security, it is creating order, and it is showing vision. If you can put all the people who are in any kind of a leadership position, either they are project manager, they are king, they are head of state, they are a senior developer who is responsible for some kind of functional area, the human actually performs in very similar ways. So we are ensuring security, we are creating order, and we are showing vision. So when you feel that they are just too hot and the temperature is just too high, we are focusing on these three things. So now, the Corona example, right? We don't know what to do, and the manager comes and shares with you that, okay guys, actually, of course, we understand that the situation is critical. We know that you won't lose your jobs. So even though that the economy is impacted, but we have maybe half a year or a year of cash to run, so your salaries won't be impacted on that, right? So I'm ensuring security. Then I'm focusing on creating order, so specific systems and tools, how we will work from now on. That, okay, people, relax. We will, check in on Monday. I will answer all your questions. There is like a John and Sarah who will ensure that all of you transition from office to home, and from home office will be really smoothly. We will take care of your laptops. We will take care of your belongings. I'm creating order, right? Step by step, I'm actually providing the order. And then I'm showing vision. So in the Corona example, it might be communicating our values, showing that our ambition is not changing. And even though we have this kind of, turbulence, we will actually go through that and we will actually improve and become even better versions of ourselves. So this is how people starting to feel a bit more relaxed, and they're saying that, okay, the management knows what they are doing, so I am secure, I won't lose my job, it won't impact my salary, so that's fine. I know that there will be specific steps taken in order to mitigate that risk and to minimize the damage. And then we also have like a vision, so we know that the future is positive. And it's very, very important for us as humans to feel that the future is positive. The interesting thing about our state and our feeling that something that will happen in the future will be positive is so strong that even online shopping is based partly exactly on that. because you're feeling the dopamine increase not only while you are shopping, but also you are thinking about the future. You will get that new keyboard, you will get that new maybe standing desk, and you're excited, right? Even though that is not happening already, but you're thinking about the future, and it is in a positive way. Now, the interesting is if you want to increase the temperature, you actually need to do the opposite. And this is the things that are not taught in any management book or in any kind of how to lead people, because in the majority of the cases, managers and lecturers are focusing on these three things. In order to be a great manager, you need to be the one who comes, and you are creating the order, you are showing the vision, so you are leading your people to the great future, right? So you have this flag and you are going to the future, right? And you are, of course, creating security. You are saying that, okay, guys, you're safe with me, everything will be fine. Now, if you want to increase the temperature and help people to mobilize it from that yellow part to the green one and to have this productive increasement, we need to explore and expose risks. We need to break order and damage the status quo, and we need to create the absence of vision and initiative. I mentioned that this sounds risky, and it is, because if done incorrectly, of course, it can damage your team morale and team dynamics. So be careful with that. But let me explain. When we are speaking about security, so the opposite of security, of course, is seeing some kind of risks happening. So I have to explore the risks myself and then expose the risk for other people. I remember while we were building a supply chain optimization product, which was also based on AI, but it was before the AI was cool, so it's like more than 7 years ago. We had this transition from building a project to build a product. So we worked with a couple of major retailers, some of the biggest retailers in the planet, and we had this very custom-based projects based on their unique goals. But then we won a couple of awards, and we started to think that maybe we want to have not 2 clients, but 200 clients. So we will focus on building a product. And when we started to build a product, everything went really smoothly. The team was engaged because it's exciting, right? We worked with like a very just a small number of clients, and now we're focusing on like globally and distributing the supply chain with technology. But after a while, I noticed that it is really just became business as usual, and the motivation dropped because the first initial stages of excitement just went off. So what I did, I actually explored the risk of what our competitors were doing, what kind of features they were building, how much of the market share they are actually winning, while we are whining, or we are doubting ourselves, or we are trying to create features that are actually not so important for our final customer. So this is what I did. I actually explored the risks, and I actually really transparently showed the risk for the team that people, if we are not moving quick enough, this is what will happen. So I'm showing the risk. Now the second thing is damaging the status quo. It happens when sometimes, of course, it happens naturally, right? With my examples of war on or of the COVID. So the status quo is damaged. We don't know what will happen. We don't know how we should be behaving in this kind of new reality. So sometimes we need to do that consciously by removing some kind of usual routines of the persons or on the team, or doing it even in some kind of isolated way. Of, for example, you're coming to the, let's say, sprint retrospective, and you're saying that even though that I am like a PO or Scrum Master or whatever, that I will not lead the sprint retrospective now, and you will do that, and I'm shutting down and I'm being silent. And then you will see that the people start to interact, and they start to thinking about different ways of, well, if we don't want to waste the time, maybe, you, Mike, would like to jump on and lead the sprint retrospective. And Mike says that, okay, guys, I will do that. So the team is mobilizing themselves with us, just damaging or just, moving slightly the status quo. And finally, the absence of vision and initiative is actually the thing that is very unnatural for us as people in the leadership positions, as leaders, because by definition it seems that we need to be showing vision to be considered as a great leader. But this is where all the thinking about leadership goes, and this is the future of leadership, is that we are, instead of thinking of leadership as set of characteristics, we are looking at leadership as a job, as actually some kind of systems we need to manage. And this is a huge difference, because sometimes when if you can search for characteristics of a great leader, you might see that the leader needs to be charismatic, extroverted, the people person who will motivate everyone around you. But how many leaders personally that are not extroverted, that are not super motivated, but they are great leaders, right? Maybe even some of you are these kind of people who are not, extremely extroverted and extremely, soul of all of the parties, but you know what needs to be done. You know how to work with your people. You know how to work with the technology. You have the experience. You have the know-how. You're helping to move your people forward. So instead of focusing on characteristics and some kind of, character building, we're focusing and seeing the leadership as a job that needs to be done. So, for example, mitigating the risks and actually trying to align this different temperature in the team. So there are many ways to do that, but today I want just for you to understand it and to understand this kind of different way to look at it. Of course, coming back to my point A example, that is really, really important to understand your unique position and how it actually will impact your team. Because sometimes being too long in that kind of distress and productive stress phase can also damage the team, because the team then can start burning out, right? Or start to lose the momentum because they are just too focused and just too engaged, which also can happen. But the idea is for you to actually understand just the key underlying factors that helps to either increase the temperature when needed and to decrease the temperature when needed as well. Because when we are focusing on, for example, change management, or we are focusing on changing the behaviors or habits of the person, in a lot of cases we are doing that mistake of focusing on these three things. So imagine the situation is already good enough and you are coming back and you're saying the situation will be even better. Okay, cool, but I don't want even better. It's already good enough, right? I don't want to move. I don't want to invest my attention, my energy, my time to make the situation just slightly better, right? I want to focus on productive items. So this is why these kind of things comes in order to increase the temperature. Now, when it comes to increasing the temperature and ensuring the long-term productiveness and a long-term motivation, there's also one thing that actually helps us to achieve goals in the long term. The key word is in the long term. And it actually is understanding the obstacles and understanding our fears. So it also relates with the increase of the temperature. Limiting options to fail is what we want to focus on. And there is a great quote that to increase motivation in the long term, we need to think how hard is going to be along the way and how I am going to fail, right? You need to know what I'm working towards, so what is my point A, point B, and how I'm going to get there, and when I will experience this obstacle, this is what I'm going to do about it. And this is hugely based on our physiological factors. So it's not only about emotions, it's not all about psychology, but it's also about our biology and how exactly our bodies work in the absence of a risk or in the face of risk. Maybe some of you hear the guy Huberman, who listens to Huberman Lab podcast, right? Congratulations, you are on a great path. For those who are not, I would recommend really to look into it. Amazing podcast, focusing on peer research and the great scientific examples and facts and evidence when it comes to human behavior. So this is the podcast that I would recommend in order to understand better about what Emily Belenches, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, mentioned about the risk setting and how actually we are as humans looking at the risk. So in this podcast, the both doctors explains actually the underneath biology, why exactly it's working. So it's really interesting. I would recommend you checking it out. It will help you to understand more about this background. But when it comes to the background, or when it comes to any kind of scientific research, the main question that I am asking is how we can actually, apply it to our daily life. How we can actually use those tools, those findings, to improve our performance and actually close the gap between point A, where we are currently at, and the point B, where we are going. And this is the exercise that is called fear setting. So the first time I hear this exercise is from this guy, Tim Ferriss, who also has a great podcast, not so biological based, but also amazing. And Tim Ferriss actually adapted this exercise from Seneca. So I'm actually like a third guy explaining it to you now. So this fear setting exercise actually focusing on understanding how you're going to fail and understanding the prevention mechanisms to put in place in order for us to move forward in the long term. This is how it looks like. So first of all, we need to understand our unique position and our point B, so our goal, what we are trying to achieve. Then we are defining the fear. We're defining the things that we're actually the most afraid about when it comes to not achieving the point B. So instead of asking, how I will reward myself or how excited I will be about reaching the goal, we're asking ourselves how I am going to fail. What needs to happen for me to do not reach the goal? How I'm going to fail, why I'm going to fail. So first of all, we are defining the risk. Then we are understanding how we can prevent the risk. So if there are any mechanisms for me to put in place right now, so I will prevent that damage even from happening. But of course, life happens, and the damage, if the damage is done, then we are focusing on repairing. So if actually it will happen, how I can repair that situation. So how I can actually get back on track. Then we are focusing on the costs of inaction. So there are problems, or for example, some kind of ideas that if we are asking ourselves what's the cost of inaction, it probably will just, okay, I will, miss some kind of opportunity and that's it. So there are no so huge costs. But sometimes when we are speaking about new initiatives in the business, or we are speaking about how to move forward, or, the great example and the classical example is, the battle between business side of things and technology, and technology says that, we need to take care of technical debt, we need to refactor code, we need to actually improve the quality, but the business says that we want to be the feature factor and we want to cook new features all the time because this is what user wants, this is how our competitors are doing things. So we, for example, being the part of the technology, we can actually show what are the costs of inaction. So if we are not taking care of the technical debt today, or in the upcoming few sprints, this is what will happen after the 6 months. This is what will happen after 1 year. This is what will happen after the 3 years if we are not taking care today. And finally, the more positive note, and finishing the exercise with a positive note, is what might the benefits of even the attempt or even the partial success. So even though I will not maybe achieve the full 100% of the goal, but what kind of value or benefit I can get from that. Coming back from my example about the technical debt, it might be that I'm just refactoring some of the services, or I'm just taking care of some specific APIs, and that will be also great progress, right? Maybe I'm not taking care of like 100% of the technical debt. Not sure if that's even possible if we are speaking about complex systems, but thinking about the benefits will really help you to elevate. Now, of course, getting the most out of this exercise, of course, needs to be done actually practically. We don't have time for that, but the ones who are looking video will be able to pause it and do it. And for you who are listening it live, I want to actually recommend doing that exercise on your own after maybe the conference or during the weekend. I actually did this exercise while I was building my business, when I was building my startup. So I'm defining the fear. For example, the biggest fear, of course, is that the startup will fail and we will lose a lot of money. We will lose our personal savings. How I'm preventing that? I'm actually invited co-founders, that is CTO and the guy responsible for business development and sales. So I'm preventing our startup from failing. I am doing market research. I am making sure that we have product market fit and all this kind of jam. How I would repair it? I also put in place a plan, if the startup fails, okay, I have some cash so I can take care of my family. My appetite for risk is a bit lower because I have 2 little daughters, so I am not some kind of student who can run on ramen or just tea all the time, or the Red Bull or some kind of other energetic drink like a battery, right? So I need to put some things in place to repair it. And then I'm thinking, what would be costs of inaction? So if I'm not trying to build my startup, and what will happen if I am not, pursuing this dream and pursuing this idea. Maybe in the 6 month, nothing happens, right? I'm just focusing on my regular activities. After a year, I might be regretting that I'm not starting the startup, and after the 3 years, I'm almost guaranteed that there will be similar ideas already emerged. And probably you also had this experience when you thought about some kind of great idea, and after a couple of years, you're seeing someone else actually building it and achieving a great success. So this is how I thought about that. And finally, what might be the benefits, even if I fail, what I will benefit from that. I will gain more experience, right? I will become better at solving problems. I will become better at adapting and performing under the stress and stuff like that. So the interesting part is that I actually failed at that startup. So I'm not a startup founder anymore. And this exercise really helped me to define how I can move forward. And the problems that we were experiencing were also, critical. Maybe the product market fit was not enough and was not aligned enough. Maybe we were not being able to collaborate in the team so much. But even though that we had this kind of experience, and now I know that I'm the guy who is focusing more on growing and developing things rather than kicking them off and starting them off, but it really helped me to become more versatile as a consultant. So I have the battle stories to share. I have these different angles that I can work with my clients, and also say what does it actually mean to fail, and how does it actually feels, and how you can have this gut-wrecking feeling that you are losing thousands and thousands of euros that you worked hard to actually gather. And since we bootstrap, so this is our like family savings, right? So this sucked, but this exercise really helped me to decrease the temperature of my own, and actually to manage the stress which is coming. So meaning that I know how I could repair if that happens, but I also know what could be the benefits and how I can move forward. So this is the two questions that I would like to leave you today. Is think about what are your main insights from this session and what you are going to do about it, or if you are going to do about it. My two recommendations are: do this fear setting exercise that we just talked, thinking not only in terms of maybe your professional goals, but also some kind of personal initiatives you're having, or personal goals or personal ambitions. And the second recommendation is add me on LinkedIn. Thank you.